Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to transform relationships to love and life. This morning's been super glitchy on so many fronts. Miss Lily, my beautiful Bali dog, is also a little bit glitchy, so I'm not sure what's happening, but it's an exciting time and I'm excited to be here with you. We're live on YouTube, so if you have any questions, please jump in on the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. If we don't get to them this week, I will certainly get to them next week. So don't hesitate to write anything in the chat. And if you're watching replay, by all means, ask your question, and I'll be sure to answer it next week. So lots of stuff to cover today. I had lots of questions submitted, all of which I'm really excited to talk about. However, I got all these hits today on my spin bike in spin class, and so I just felt like there was a few things that I wanted to share because there were some conversations that I had earlier this morning, and then my spin, and just some things that I feel like are happening in the collective and with many of you. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you are deep diving into your own awakening journey and having lots of really interesting things happen. So I want to just reference over here, but one of the things that was coming through is, oftentimes this monkey mind, and I don't even like referring to it like that, but it gets in the way. And the reason why I don't really like the monkey mind is it sort of like reminds me of monkey see, monkey do. However, that's kind of what it is, because we're oftentimes reacting to our external environment, and our mind is just having this narrative and having all these things to say about our experience here on planet Earth in our everyday life. And that voice, that monkey mind voice, is oftentimes just a circuitous loop of thoughts. It's no fun, it's no good, and it serves very little purpose. I mean, yes, there's times when our mind comes into really, really important play, and it gives us a heads up on things, and it helps us, divert from dangerous situations. But most cases, it's not as useful as our own mind thinks that it is for us. So it's all about getting the soul in the driver's seat and the mind in the back seat. But one of the things I wanted to say is that, when we think about the mind, and a lot of us have talked about the inner child, but that voice can oftentimes be viewed a little bit like a small child, whether it's yours or someone else's. Just for example, if that child were to be screaming to you or saying to you over and over and over a certain set of thoughts, what would you do? You would eventually say to that child, stop it. You would say, stop saying those things. They're not true, they're not relevant, and I don't need to hear them anymore, right? So why don't we do that when it comes to our own thoughts? And it's really that simple. And yet we make it so complex. I do myself. I make it complex all the time because I find myself listening to some of the narratives. And I'm like, that is not who I am. That is not what I need to hear myself say. And that's not really the situation at hand. Because if I'm really present in the now, there are unlimited possibilities. It's just the mind that comes in trying to tell us that there is something that is limiting, right? But it's also part of the reason why we came here to have this human experience, because in oneness and in nothingness and everything all combined in the same moment, there's not something to really experience. So we're here having a human experience, which is a relationship with our minds. So we need to keep our mind, body, soul, right, all in connection and working in balance. And right now, it feels that there's so many things happening in humanity. Individually, I feel that we are awakening at such exponential levels. And again, if you're on this Zoom or this live YouTube, you're probably feeling a lot of this happening for you too, where you're not only clearing your own mind and your own beliefs and your own mental thought constructs, but once we start clearing some of those, we get tested with more, and we get tested with the collective conscious. We get tested with our community consciousness. We get tested with all of the reflections out there that happen to us on a daily basis. And that's where it starts to get a little bit tricky and a little bit challenging, because it gets tiring to constantly be flushing out all of these ideas and this energy. keep going. We are working through such an amazing time right now with a lot of these programs clearing, and it's going to take some time in some cases. Some things are going to clear and be done overnight, and some things are going to take more time to listen to the narrative, but then let it go. So again, like that small child, just say, stop it, right? It's that simple, to stop the negative narration that the mind oftentimes wants to say. And I like to fill it with something that's more positive. Maybe it's a mantra, maybe it's an affirmation. And the sooner we can get on that, meaning stop the negative circuitous loops of thoughts and get into the positive thoughts about where we really want to be energetically and vibrationally, then we attract all of those higher vibe situations and people in our life. So we've all had this happen where something happens and it's like a negative spiral and it just feels like it's not going to get better. And that's where we want to stop it at the beginning. So don't go down the rabbit hole. Stop the thoughts, stop the suffering, tell the small child, meaning the mind, to just quiet down and to allow yourself to be in the vibration that you want to be and just go right to happiness. And sometimes that means that we have to just sit with it and we have to really be in the discipline of our own mind. So that's coming forward. I feel like it's a conversation I'm having with a lot of my inner circle. It's a conversation I obviously need for myself, just as a reminder to keep the mind in check. And it's what we talk about every week on this show, right? Is all the stories and the narratives that we bring into our life that we're here to unravel in our mind, and it really does help us to transform our relationship with ourself, our relationship with love, our relationship with life in general. So that's what we're here and all about. And we have several questions that got submitted. So I'm going to jump into the questions now. And please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll be sure to answer them. So question number one. Number one, I have an ayahuasca ceremony being offered to me, and I'm not sure if I should go or not. Any guidance on how to decide? Well, first of all, I think any kind of medicine journey should be just a yes. This is a clear yes. I think if you're waffling and you're questioning, it's the mind coming into play. But with that said, so I would question it right there if it's not like just a really strong innate feeling. But sometimes the mind does come in, and the mind is trying to get us to evaluate and stop us from wanting to go into these spaces where the mind isn't as useful, because our soul is definitely in the driver's seat. So I would sit with it. I would meditate with it. I would journal about it. I would ask my higher self and then do some remote writing in my journal. And, is this ayahuasca journey something that I need right now in my life? Will it serve my highest purpose? Is there other work that I need to be doing? And you may get a yes or no. And if so, what is that? I'm a big believer that, first of all, only you know innately where and when psychedelic journey, spiritual medicine experiences are relevant and should come into your life. However, with that said, my observation and my personal, I would say, beliefs around it is that you really do need to spend some time tuning in and paying attention to whether you're listening to that monkey mind or you're listening to your soul. Because ayahuasca, for example, can be, integrated for years. If you're going back in to get a message that you've already received, meaning maybe you've already experienced oneness, maybe you've already experienced the Godhead, maybe you've already experienced yourself in your true power, then going back into ayahuasca just to re-experience the same thing is kind of like not implementing anything your therapist might tell you to do, and you go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I'm gonna work on that, and then you don't work on it, and then you go back to the therapist and you say, hey, what should I do about this? And the therapist says, but we talked about this last week and you had a clear plan. What did you do about it? So I feel that if we're not doing something about it, which is the integration work, the deep integration work, that's actually where the journey begins. That's the hard part. Going to the journey, some people feel like purging and all that is difficult, and it's a very cleansing experience, but that's nothing compared to when you're coming back to planet Earth and you're here and you're actually having this earthbound experience. That's when the integration of spiritual medicines like ayahuasca really happens, because when we reprogram our minds and we do it in the here and now in this dimension, that's sustainable, because then we've rewired ourselves and we're able to continue on this higher vibration, right? But if we're just going back for another ceremony, then we're edging the line of just doing drugs, right? Because we want to get the messages, come back here, do the work, do the transformation, open our minds, clear out the programs, and keep moving forward, right? And then if there's a time when you feel like you need a little bit more dusting, or you feel like you want the next lesson, then maybe it's the right time to go back in. I talk about all these in my guide as well. So the psychedelic resource guide on my website, bethbell.me, is also a really great spot that you can find some really good tips on how to approach psychedelic journeys. But I do have caution when it comes to multiple journeys in a short period of time. It's just not necessary, because it potentially means that you're not doing the integration work that you need to do here. And it can also be very destabilizing. The mind, is a beautiful thing when we want it to be. And we don't want to keep, expanding in a way that we can't then hold that vibration here on planet Earth in this dimension and with our thoughts. So I've seen people really lose their ground and not have the belief system that is necessary here. So yes, we're always cleaning up our beliefs. We're always going to the highest truth. We're always wanting to implement and embody that oneness. But there are some limitations to our physical beingness. And so that's something that comes along gradually. And again, I can't say enough about integration work. So I hope that message comes through loud and clear. So I think that answers the ayahuasca ceremony question. If not, please, by all means, write in the comments and I'll expand on that a little bit more, or if you have something you want clarified. Okay, let's look at the next question. I feel worthy of receiving money, but have had a hard time manifesting it. How can I get out of this rut and into receiving abundance? And we know all of the people that have come before us and are still with us, the Abraham Hicks, the Secret, all of these messages give us the really clear answer that we have to line up with the vibration of it, right? And sometimes to do that, we have to clear out old programs, old thoughts, and it kind of goes back to the original discussion about the monkey mind, right? So there's a lot of times stuff that's in our subconscious programming that we're not even getting to when we're, going about our day. And so there's lots of different tips, tools, techniques that we can dive into. Family constellation work, I feel like I reference that a lot because it's such a good one to get in, because our programs get instilled when we're young. And we don't even know that there are programs running because we just think that that's just the way it is. And so it's really important to understand what's happening at a more subconscious level. What's deep inside me? What's a narrative that's running that I'm not seeing? And sometimes we see it, right? There's programs and narratives that I see, and I still have to work on really quieting those narratives and replacing it with a different vibrational thought. Right? So it's, when it comes to money is just energy. Money is something, abundance is something that we feel. And when we feel it, then we attract it. So there are some of the basic laws of attraction here at play, but it's also about really sitting in consistently that vibration, because sometimes we'll have a really great thought, we'll have a great meditation, and we'll be in that higher vibration. But then we go out amongst our day and little reminders and things pull us back into this feeling of lack. And so that's where we have to get really, really tuned in to our own self, our feelings, our body, and let and allow a lot of those feelings to go. Because that's where we get stuck, is those feelings come in, they're like, the thoughts are already anchored, and then it gets even more difficult. Another kind of drastic tip tool that I think is really can be really effective is if you happen to have read my book Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics. I talk about a crazy healing modality. Well, at least it felt crazy at the time, and it was the shaking ashram in Bali with Ratu Bagus. And I went and I had to go for 5 days, and there was 3 shaking sessions a day, and you had to shake for 2 hours a piece. So we shook for like violently shook for like 6 hours a day. And what that did was it really shifted our state. It shifted the energy and how it was flowing in our body, because we don't realize sometimes like where we're stuck. Like, yeah, if we get tension and we feel, anxiety, well, we go, oh, I'm really anxious. I can feel that. But at a really, really minuscule cellular level, we have a lot happening with our energy and our cells. And that's why everyone talks about breath, why breath is so important to pull through, right? So when we're shaking, I mean, like really just like shaking our body, we're bringing energy through our body. And when we can connect it to the earth, and we can connect it to the celestial, we can connect it to the terrestrial, then our vehicles start to clear out some of this energy. So if you're in one of those circuitous loops, whether it has to do with money or another limiting belief that you may be experiencing, shake it out. Miss Lily, my Bali dog, she does this all the time. She reminds me, like, if something traumatic happens for her, something scary happens for her, she just shakes it off, right? All animals do this. You can see it in the wild. So shaking off this energy and shaking it out, and just doing it with intention, right? Intention to bring more light in and let the fear-based thoughts go out, right? So love comes in, fear goes out, and just continually clearing. And maybe you shake for 5 minutes. It doesn't mean that you have to shake for 6 hours of the day. That was a little intense. But I can tell you, when I came out of that shaking ashram, there were moments during it I was like, what am I doing? And is this really working? But when I came out, I had just a profound experience with Mother Nature. I had a profound experience with a stranger at the side of the road who I felt deeply in love with, not romantically, but in connection to. And it was because I had shook out a lot of the fear-based thinking and a lot of the energy that was lower vibration. So it's all about raising our vibration. And we do that through releasing fear-based, negative, lower vibrational thoughts that we hold at a cellular level in our body. So there's a lot more techniques that probably could go along with that, but I think those are 2 that really are helpful when it comes to uncovering, some things that are more subconscious that might be holding you back from abundance in your life. And abundance in all ways, right? Abundance of love, abundance of connection, abundance of community, abundance of wealth, abundance of just love exuding from your heart and exchanging it with others, right? So that's the place we want to be, is when we just feel in connection. I think that's what's happening for a lot of people today, is they're not feeling that connection. They're not feeling the connection from other people. Sometimes the smallest things. I remember this from Bali, and it's still here in California with me. I mean, it's everywhere. That when I walk into a restaurant and someone knows my name, the server there knows me, I just feel like I'm in community. It brings me back to like my roots of growing up in a small town where we all knew each other, and we all cared for each other because we kind of had to. I mean, we didn't have to, but we did because we knew each other. Like, we couldn't pretend that we didn't know, the person crossing the street with us. Like, you did. So you said hi, you made eye contact. And in today's world, we're not really doing that. In fact, we're kind of doing the opposite. We're like, yeah, I just want to try to not, make eye contact with that person. I don't know where they're at in their life. They might be crazy. They might be this. They might be that. And they might think I'm weird for looking at them. So there's like all these things that are happening now that are so far away from community and connection. And I think those basic needs that we all have to be connected to others is something we want to focus on. That's where we want to be, is in that place of connection with others. And when we do that, that's giving and that's receiving and that's abundance. That's what fills us. So sometimes the small things, making eye contact, saying hello, pausing, hugging someone maybe just a little bit longer as opposed to this, hug, and, but really embracing them and really having that extra moment for physical connection. And it doesn't have to be sexual connection. A lot of people go to sexual connection, but it's not about that all the time. It's about really helping our oxytocin levels rise. Okay, so I know I just went off onto a bunch of tangents there. Hopefully that answers the question. To get you out of the rut, shake it off, do some family constellation work, see what your underlying subconscious beliefs are, and maybe some ancestral lineage issues that might be narrating and navigating you in a direction you don't want to go. Okay, so another question. I went on a first date after a few phone discussions. He seemed interesting, but when we wrapped up, he didn't suggest a specific time to get together next. Is that a bad sign? Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that is don't get too much in your head about it, because sometimes that's just not helpful to try to evaluate something. I would say feel into your body, like how did you feel and how interested are you in getting back together with this person? Was it, green lights, like, hey, I'm super interested? If so, act accordingly. Text them, say, hey, I really enjoyed my time. Are you interested in setting a date, another date? Right? And then you'll find out. He'll say yes or no. And if he's kind of wishy-washy on it, then it's a no. I feel like, wishy-washy is not necessary. Like, people know if there's a connection. Okay, maybe not everybody does, but most people know whether they want to see somebody again. And if they have a lot of questions about it, I would say that it's probably not a great match. But before you jump to that conclusion, ask, right? So simple. Just ask, like, hey, how did you feel about our connection? I thought it was great. Are you interested in connecting again? Instead of getting into the mind of, oh, I wonder what that means. And he hasn't written me back for a day, or he has written me back, or, all those things are the mind things. And so we don't really need to get into that. I don't think that's so helpful, because we start creating stories that don't even exist. Like, we create stories about people all the time, right? Because we're observing from the outside, from our lens, not from theirs. And so I'm always going to offer that communicate, ask, even if it's a new relationship, just ask, like, hey, how are you feeling about our new connection? And if they can't respond and they're uncomfortable with that, then they're probably just not the right person for you. Communication is the key. And it's so much fun, actually, when we can communicate, because why do we need to go on like 5 dates to realize that we knew on the first date that we really didn't have that connection? So ask. I think that's the best way to find out. Okay, another question. I'm working on a small team of people on a sailboat. It's fun, but I don't feel a synergistic camaraderie with everyone. Any suggestions as to how I can build better relationships? Sorry, I have a hard time reading the question. Any suggestions as to how I can build better relationships? I think sometimes when we're in situations, especially close quarters, we're kind of in our own mind, and we're evaluating other people, and we're looking and observing and experiencing ourselves and how we feel. One of the best ways to have a deeper relationship with another is ask them something about themselves. Learn about them. Asking, about their likes, their dislikes, how they're feeling. And, some people can't go to the feeling place, but what do you think about the sunset? Have you seen a sunset? I'm being very basic, but have you seen a sunset like this? Oh, well, where else have you seen the most beautiful sunset? Right? So it's engaging someone, trying to understand a little bit more about them, their preferences, how they feel about something. These are all really great ways to build camaraderie in an environment where you know that you're actually going to be with someone for a while. Because I'm assuming if you're on a sailboat, unless it's just an afternoon, but it didn't sound like it, because it was more of working as a team. So it looked like there was something more there. But yeah, always asking more about the other person, because I think what we find is that there are similarities. I mean, most likely I could walk down the street and every single person I could find at least one thing, if not a handful of things that we share in common. And when we do that, we just feel seen, heard, and validated. And that is, again, the keys to deeper connection with others when we're able to experience things through others' eyes. It's more fun because we already know what we think about things. We already have our narratives, ingrained deeply in us. So why not learn about someone else's perspective? Doesn't mean we have to agree with it, but it's a lot of fun just to feel into how someone else is viewing the world. So that's what I would recommend to build better camaraderie and synergy with the crew that you're on. And if you find that there's some things that you just like are never going to agree on, I would minimize the discussion around those particular topics, right? And find the things that you do agree on. It's kind of basic, but sometimes we miss out on those opportunities to learn more about our fellow brothers and sisters. Okay, let's go to the next question. I've heard you talk about how spirit guided you to write your book. I want to write my own and feel nudges, but don't have the fire to put my fingers to the keyboard to start. I want to, but I'm just not getting started. What could I do to get going? Well, there's something, as you're saying, there's nudges. So you have a nudge, you have a wave of information that's flowing through you that's giving you this idea that you want to write a book, right? So there's something in there. And what I would say is ride the wave. Because if you're just listening to your mind talk about all these ideas, but you're not actually just getting the pen or the pencil or the keyboard out, then you can just kind of find yourself like slipping on and off the wave and not really diving in. But for me, and I think for many people who are professional writers, it's about being in the flow. And so when you start to get that idea of a concept, or like, oh, this is the content I want to put in there. I get so much stuff on my spin bike. I don't even know where I am. I'm sure the instructors are like, wait, where is that woman? Because I'm there in the room physically, but I'm also just like, wow, I'm just downloading ideas and thoughts, and and this is what I want to put in this, in this book. And so a lot of times what I do is after the spin class, I write down, I'll sit in my car and I'll just be like, okay, note, and I'll jot down like what the ideas are. And then I do my best to come back and flush it out as quickly as I can. Quickly meaning like, if I can that day or the next day when the ideas are still fresh, because otherwise I feel like they can just fly right out. So get in the flow. Whenever you get an idea, maybe carry a journal. I have a little journal. I guess I don't have it sitting right here, but a little journal you can carry around. And then when you have that idea, write it down. I'm also a big believer that the pen to the paper is really magical, and that channeling information through the pen on the paper is a great way to just get information to flow through. And once you get started, so set a goal that maybe every morning you're going to write for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. And I bet you it'll probably turn into 10. But even if it doesn't, then you got that 5 minutes that you were able to really have some start time on the messages that you feel like you want to pull through. It doesn't have to be as difficult as we all make it to be. You don't have to write, a 20-page chapter. You just need to keep going. And as the messages start to come and you start to act on them, it builds momentum. There's just an energy about it, because I know when I'm in the process of writing a book, I just feel called back to and I just got to write and write. And then, I'm doing something else. And, here's the insights. And, I've got to go back. And so take advantage of the flow, take advantage of the waves. Super, super important. Otherwise, the waves, I feel like they just kind of like start to go out, and the enthusiasm goes out, and then the mind comes in, and then all the judgments come about how you haven't started the book, and then that just spirals you back into that lower vibrational thought form of like what you didn't get done, and judging yourself because you went and you did that but you didn't write. No, just get in, start writing, just do it. I mean, there's a reason why Nike came up with that phrase, just do it, right? So just follow it. All right, another question. The weather often has a negative effect on me too. Like when it's cloudy, I feel unmotivated. How do you stay productive during this time or overcome the clouds? Yeah, I am super affected by sunlight. It's one of the reasons why I love being in Southern California. Although there's certain times of year, June gloom, May gray, where we do have a pretty thick marine layer. Some days it doesn't burn off at all, and that for me it can be quite challenging. However, one of the things that I find is sitting in meditation and just visualizing the light. So I know, gosh, I don't know, but this is just a thought that I recall years and years ago, that in some areas of the world where they don't see sunlight, maybe it was Alaska, um, they actually have bright lights that they sit with, to just give them the stimulation to the brain. And so if you are in a situation where when you sit in meditation you're not able to see that bright light, maybe turn on a light, and have it shine on you. You can still have your eyes closed, or almost closed, and just let the light come and hit you. If you do have a ray of sunshine outside, go get in it, right? If you have clouds, you can still probably find, depending upon the thickness and the darkness of the clouds, but even like right now, it's very overcast here. And I have a choice. I can see either the darkness, or I could actually look towards spots in the sky that are more light and bright, and focus in on the lightness, focus in on the brightness. That helps to change the chemistry in our brains and helps us to just invigorate in a different way. So, or turn on the light. Like I said, I mean, a lot of us have lights for our calls, our lives, and just sit with that shining on you, and it will make a difference. So we don't have to have the sunlight, as much as I love to have the sunlight. Or maybe there's a spot, a patch of sun you can drive to easily, and get away and just give yourself that extra boost. Okay, let's see. What's your favorite book right now that you're reading? Actually, there's several. I always have so many books that I'm reading all in the same process. There's like some real staples, like A Course in Miracles, but that is not every day. It should be, could be, but it's not. The other book that I've really been back into, it's a book that I read a while back, but it's The Convoluted Universe by Dolores Cannon. And I feel like I'm drawn to read some of those stories because I feel it raise my vibration. And part of why I think it's raising my vibration is she's doing hypnotherapy with individuals who are connecting to their starseed families. So it helps me to feel really grounded in a very celestial way, meaning that I'm able to get into that higher vibration with my starseed family and my origins and where I'm from. And the concepts she talks about are so familiar to me, and yet not necessarily familiar to everyone here on the earth plane. And so it makes me feel a sense of connection and communion with my celestial tribe. So that's one that I feel like I've been dipping back into a lot. More modern, contemporary, I guess the other one I have sitting on my desk is Michael Pollan. A friend of mine gave me this to read, and I've been enjoying it. I'm not too far into it yet, and I actually just saw Michael Pollan at the Psychedelic Science Conference, and that was really, just fun to hear him banter with Bob, Jesse. I have a one of the videos on YouTube where I've recorded that session. It was actually quite a bit of fun, but I like his book because he talks in the first few chapters, because like I said, I'm not very far yet. He talks about poppy seeds and how, there's this whole controversy in a sense, especially when in the time frame that he's writing the book, about whether it's illegal to have, poppies growing, and then it's only legal when you know that you're growing opium from poppy seeds. And then the other dichotomy was that people were getting arrested for knowing that they could crack open the top of a poppy to get the opium, versus the big pharma companies. Gosh, I can't remember. It was like $43 billion or something the family has made, that was the pharmaceutical grade opium. And how like, why are we why are we arresting, gardeners with poppies versus having this legal on the market as a pharmaceutical product when people are becoming, overly addicted. It's ruining people's lives. And yeah, so I'm finding that dichotomy to be really, really fascinating. And it also kind of leads over into how, alcohol is so accepted. And I don't have a problem with people drinking alcohol. I think where it gets a little bit interesting is that people take alcohol often to numb themselves, whereas psychedelics are here to help us wake up. And yet we're fighting to get psychedelics back on the market legal and off of Schedule 1. And yet we have alcohol, which causes liver disease and, all these different problems in our bodies, and it numbs us and it breaks open our aura energetically. And, certainly occasional use, like for me, it's not a big deal. But the fact that it's like well received that people can drink every night almost of the week. And yet they have a judgment against something like psychedelics. So I find all of that to be really fascinating as well. And if you've read my book, you know that I have been anti-drug all my life, even marijuana, until more recently in the last 3 to 5 years, I've started to open a lot to understand plant-based medicines and the power of psychedelics and the power of plants, the power of Mother Nature in a way that's just like exponential. So yeah, it's interesting how we ebb and flow in our own lives and expand our own consciousness and understand things in a different way, and actually, go from a completely anti-psychedelic mindset to a very supportive mindset in the right set and setting. Now, with that said, I'm also going to always say the right set and setting, the shaman, all of these factors play a huge role. Intention setting, integration. I talk about, I think it's the top 12 things that I think are really important to know if you're embarking on a psychedelic journey, even if you're an experienced, as some people want to be called psychonauts. If you have experience with going into the celestial realms and other dimensions with psychedelics, the guide is also still a great thing because it can help you share with others some of the key things to know, but it's also a great resource. I list so many amazing websites and companies and resources that can help you if you've had a bad trip, if you need support with insurance for ketamine, which is currently on the market. Yeah, there's just, if you want to know very specifically about the molecules and all of that detail, you can, the guide leads you right to all of that. So it's a great guide for many, many reasons. So so I think those are like some of the top books right now for me, but there's a few more that I have on my desk and maybe I can talk about them in next week. All right, let's go to the next question. We're coming down on time. I'm curious to learn more about psychedelics. Where's the best place to go to find advice or info? Actually, I just answered that unknowingly. I would go to my psychedelics resource guide on bethbell.me. You'll find it easily in the About tab, and it's there's a page for psychedelics. There's about me, Beth Bell. There's a page about psychedelics, and there's also a page about herpes. So the herpes handbook is also coming soon. And I look forward to having that made available for everyone. So the psychedelics page and the resource guide is available right now on the website. Okay. I'm feeling lonely is the question. Any tips to overcome this? One of the things that I find really helpful, I do happen to live by the ocean. So going to the ocean and connecting in to the sand and the water and the vibration of everything that's happening is really helpful for me. Now, I recognize that not everyone has an ocean. So the good news is that everyone has Mother Nature. Even if you're living in the city, there's a park, there's a blade of grass somewhere, there's a flower. Even if you can't leave your house, perhaps you can order in flowers. Perhaps you can ask a friend to bring you a flower. There's a portal there. with any piece of Mother Nature that you can bring into your house, if you already have a plant, perhaps. I really think that flowers have a vibrational essence about them that can take us to a higher vibration quite quickly. It helps to quiet our mind. Yeah, I would do a flower over a plant, but plants are great too, because sometimes we can just look deeply into the leaf. And yes, I know maybe this sounds crazy, but look really closely at the leaf. Look at the veins in the leaf. Look at how it's just naturally unfolding, each leaf. Look at how it goes, and it just like moves to the sun, like wherever you have the plant in your living room, or your wherever you have it in your bedroom. And how it connects into the sunlight, how it connects to source energy, and how it doesn't worry about anything. Yes, we're humans, so we have that ability, but we can also have the ability to not slip into worry and not slip into fear-based thoughts. So Mother Nature is always available to us. If you can get outside, you can go for a walk, you can get your feet in the dirt, you can get your feet in the sand, get your feet in the grass. Be like a small child, like with that childlike curiosity of just like what it feels like. Because when we get back into our body and we feel the grass on our feet, whether it's hot or cold or wet or dry, and we just start going back to the basics of feeling. I'm going like this. I don't know why. I'm going like this because I feel like, sometimes it's just having the sensations back in our body, because we get so much in here, so much in the mind, so much in the thought system, that sometimes just coming back, and sometimes just actually acknowledging yourself and touching yourself can bring you back to a level of awareness and love that you might have slipped away from because you were too involved in what was going on in the narrative of your mind. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question about being lonely. There's, a lot of other tips I could potentially give, but I like the Mother Nature tip the most because I think a lot of times we think about ourselves as being lonely from someone else. And I think that's part of the illusion. Yes, we can feel lonely from other people. I get it. But the idea is that we connect into the true essence of who we are. And when we do that and we're connected to source and we feel that anchoring in of our own self and our connection to everything that's bigger than us, and we feel connected to everyone and everything, that's really the sweet spot, because that doesn't leave us. That can't cheat on us, that can't break up with us, that can't abandon us, right? So it's going back to that core wound of separation that, unless you're an enlightened master, you're still working on today. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, Yogananda. There's been lots of enlightened individuals who have come to planet Earth in human embodiment that have shown us what it's like to be in these more expanded states of consciousness. So when we connect to Mother Nature, we can overcome that loneliness. And now that I'm saying this, and I do know I have this book over here, I'm going to point it out because I think that this is also one of my favorite books. It's an old book, actually. It's called Osho's Love, Freedom, and Aloneness. And it's the cone of relationships. And why I really like this, it says, how can we reconcile our need for freedom and our desire for intimacy and relationships? And so intimacy comes at such an incredible level when we already love ourselves and we are having the experience to share our own love with someone else. That is the epitome of really having an intimate relationship with another, is because we've done the first marriage first, which is something that Axel, who I talk about in the book, always talks about, is the first marriage, right? Is having that deeper relationship with self. You can call it self-love, but I think it's bigger than self-love conceptually, in that it is embodiment of source and knowingness that we are all one and connected. Okay, so hopefully that answers. If it doesn't, please write in the notes and I'll expand on that. Okay, we're coming down to the wire, I think. All right, you know what? I think I'm going to end it there. I had one more question, but I think it's something that's just a little too long of a topic to get into for this this episode. So I'm so happy you're here. Thank you. If you've enjoyed any aspect of this, please subscribe, hit the bell. You'll be notified of future lives. I hope to see you next Sunday, every Sunday, 11:11 a.m. Pacific time. It's always fabulous when I get your questions live. But by all means, submit them and I will do my best to answer them. So I look forward to seeing you next week. I wish you well, and I wish you much bliss and love as you're unraveling your own mind and transforming your relationships to love and to life.